Welcome to the September 14th meeting of Rotary Club of Louisville. I'm Kevin Lynch, President of the Club of Rotary History. Important announcement, please, and your vote. We lost two great men, two former Rotarians. Longtime member James Robert Hill passed away Sunday, September 3rd. He joined our club way back in June of 1980, and he recognized he resigned in 2017 due to health reasons. And his son, Angelo, most of you know, was a member of our club from 2003 to 2018. Funeral service was actually held this morning, at 10 o'clock this morning, at St. Francis of the Fields Church. Please join me in a moment of silence to honor Jim. Now I'd like to invite past president, and one of our best presidents, dark presidents ever, John Bush, to share a few words about a good friend of his, another member we lost last week.
Thank you, President Kevin. On September the 7th, a week ago or so, Bob Maddox, who loved Rotary, Bob Maddox, who loved Rotary, who was a dedicated Rotarian for over 50 years, passed away peacefully at Baptist East Hospital at the young age of 90. And I say young 90 for Bob because those of you who had the pleasure of knowing him over the years realize and understand what I'm talking about. He was a very, very young, 90 years old, and was always a true gentleman. He was regularly attended at the meetings here. Last time I think I saw Bob was at a meeting 4 or 5 weeks ago, and he loved Rotary. Bob's stepson, Toby Nutt, is here with us today, his wife Eleanor, and they were kind enough to ask me to say a few things to you all about Bob and his love for Rotary. As I said, Bob was a Rotarian for a good 50 years. He was actually a Rotarian first in Owensboro for a few years, and then came here in 1971. I think he here joined our club, and he was a member until the day he died. Anyway, but Toby and Eleanor want me just to tell you all how much his club and how much Rotary itself meant to him, and how much it helped him after he retired, helped him stay connected to his community, mentioned to everyone in the church. And he just loved what this club and what Rotary stands for, and was also a great supporter of it. In terms of Bob's career, first of all, Bob graduated from the ULSP School of Engineering, and then worked for 30 years for Bell South for AT&T, where he retired as the marketing and sales manager for Kentucky. He was, as I said, a proud graduate of the school, the Speed School of Engineering and Avenue, a sports fan. He was also, many of you may not know, and I didn't know this until recently, but when he was a younger man, he was a Marine Corps officer with the Marine Air Wing in Japan. He was an Okinawa. So, yes, the mild-mannered guy that we know, he's always a true gentleman. He's a young guy. He was a badass. But he also always had that tender heart, and he showed it. Toby shared a nice little story with me just a few weeks ago, about 3 weeks before he died. Bob was 90, and he put on a pink shirt to take granddaughter Emily to the Barbie. Anyway, Bob loved God, he loved his country, he loved his family, he loved his community, and he really, really, really loved Rotary. So we can just have a moment of silence in memory of Bob.
Thanks, John. It's funny about Bob, he lived a great life, but I didn't really get introduced to him, but he just knew everybody. He was always so friendly. He was such an easy guy to get to meet, and I think he probably knew us all in a lot of ways. And I just think something like that is pretty special when you connect with the country and everybody. Providing our invitation today is Doug Myers, Broker Associate of Timber and Realtors. And listen to this. District Parliamentarian of the District Leadership Council of Rotary Club. Sustaining member, and Paul Harris. Thanks,
spiritual side of our being. What on earth are they thinking? I'm still trying to figure out which armrest was mine in the theater last night. Well, let me get my thoughts together. I've yet to figure out why glue doesn't stick to the inside of the bottle. By the way, Lord, if we're not meant to have a midnight snack, why is there a light in the fridge? And thinking about that, all my life I thought air was free until I opened that bag of chips. So my cereal this morning said it was new and improved. How can something be both new and improved? God, which came first? The orange or the color orange? What was that kept me up all night last night? I thought, God, where does a thought go when it's forgotten? Well, some of us are still waiting for the waiter to bring us our food. Don't we become the waiter in that process? I can't think. Well, thank you for the wait staff and for our food. Well, God, I thank you for this club. I can't think of a better day for Rotary to host Dr. Nat Irvin II, Assistant Dean of Thought Leadership and Civic Engagement at U of L. Maybe he can help me wrestle my thoughts into shape. I wonder if Dr. Irving will tell us what the first man to milk a cow was trying to do. No, Lord, with a title like that, he'll probably explain if our human accomplishments have long-term universal significance, or when the world ends, we all end with it and all that we've accomplished. In any event, when I leave here today, please help me find my car in the parking lot. Amen.
Excellent. Now, leads the pledge of forward test is Angie Bailey, Chief Human Resources Officer at the Arts Council.
Good afternoon. Please join me in the pledge to allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now please join me in the four-way test, the things we think, say, and do.
Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you.
Thank you. Time for guest introductions. I'm not sure, is there not a mic back there? There isn't this one. Yes. There is, okay. As you all know, when you go back to the guests, their name, company, title, and the guests, when they're announcing your name, please stand. And then after this, the places, what is Rotary over there? Go there after me. Greg, I believe it's here. Just a little bit about something to do.
Good morning or good afternoon, President Kevin. We should actually speak back here. I think this mic might be louder. I apologize for the sound issues. The person on staff here at the University Club that normally sets up our room and the speakers is not available today. And unfortunately, we do not have the skills here within the Rotary Club that I know of to do that on our own. So we are dealing with a podium mic that's coming out of that little podium, the little speaker that's coming out of that little podium. So if you really want to hear, go sit up front. Maybe next week we'll just use this podium. All right, so I have two guests to introduce. They're here. Gina, is Gina here? I met Gina yesterday at the Chamber St. Matthew's Expo, and she really wanted to come hear Dr. Irvin today, but looks like she didn't make it. Also, Ashley Murray. Is Ashley? Well, I'm striking out today. Anyway, next. Okay.
I plan to bat 1,000. I'm Barbara Sexton, President Kevin.
Thank you for the dueling microphones. It reminds me of dueling banjos. And yes, the first shall be last, Henry, and the last shall be first. My guest, Kim Moore. Please stand up, Kim. Kim is the president and CEO of Joshua Community Connectors. It is an incredibly vibrant and thriving and necessary nonprofit in our community that was Kim's vision, and we applaud you for that. Her focus is group violence intervention, shortened GVI. She knows as much, if not more, than anyone in Jefferson County and probably in the country on the subject. Please get to know Kim Moore.
I'll just second the comments on Kim. She's amazing, so say hi. And my name's Gil Holland. Happy to be here. First time I've ever brought a guest. I'm supposed to have lunch with Jeremy Winston, great lawyer. And then I heard that Nat Irvin was speaking, and we're in for a treat. So Jeremy Winston, thank you.
Since the lead said it's better here in terms of listening, we're moving the meeting. You can stay where you are, however. We have a couple of Rotarians in the spotlight this week. Rotarian Erica Fields is featured this month's issues of the Voice Tribune. That's also inspired. It's a full story. Congratulations to members who work for these companies who made the local business first Fast 50. Randy Jenkins of Eclipse Bank and Jeremy Okura of Miranda Construction. They'll be honored in the awards program on October 24th. I now like to invite Chris Manzo, owner and president of SNDBX Design Collaborative, co-chair of the Membership Development Engagement Committee, and Paul Harris College to induct some new members. I believe it SNDBX. That's an acronym? Sandbox. I'm trying to do all the words. What's the sandbox?
Can you all hear me okay? I usually have no problem for you. No? All right.
We want to do it back here? Is it better back here?
Yeah, it is.
Let's do it back here.
Okay. Change the plan.
Only if you want to hear it.
Messed up Kevin there. Oh, that is better. Fantastic. All right, Rotarians. It is our obligation from time to time to invite new members to join our club, and so that we might not only increase our usefulness to our neighbors in our community, but also spread and extend the spirit of Rotary out throughout the Louisville community. Today it is my honor to formally welcome two new members, Leslie and Chris. You both have been elected to membership of this club because we believe you to be worthy representatives of your calling, and possess qualities that will permit you to exemplify your public, business, social, and private life the true spirit of Rotary, which is service above self. You have admitted not only to the Rotary Club of Louisville, Downtown Club, but to the worldwide organization of Rotary, which consists of over 46,000 clubs. And by virtue of your membership in this club, you'll be welcome to the fellowship and extended hospitality of any Rotary Club in the world. You can need one. Go about your life. Rotary membership adds value to those who engage, whether by attending meetings or events, participating in service projects, or sharing your knowledge and talents as we carry out the principles of Rotary, those of service above self, into our community. Now, I'm going to read the bio first, and then we'll do the introduction. Chris Spirit is used to being the new kid in town, as she grew up in a Navy family and moved multiple times in her life. She's mostly from Tennessee, but has quickly learned to love Louisville. She moved here with her husband Dan and her daughter Amelia, who was 3, and their 2 dogs. I love this: Arnold Palmer and Dirty Harry. Already sets the flavor of the household. Fantastic. Chris graduated from the University of Memphis with a journalism degree. She started her career in print journalism and then moved into the nonprofit world. She's been working with Big Brothers and Big Sisters for the past 8 years and was able to join the Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Kentuckiana in May of 2023. Chris enjoys spending time with her family, playing golf, riding bikes, and enjoys sports. Welcome, Chris. smart. Leslie is a seasoned nonprofit leader who has supported over 20 nonprofits in her professional career and through volunteer service. She currently serves as CEO of the Louisville Ballet and is a faculty member of the Center for Nonprofit Excellence School of Fundraising and Engagement. She just completed over 7 years of service as the president of CHI, St. Joseph's Health Foundations, overseeing 5 fundraising foundations that provide philanthropic support to 100 plus St. Joseph Health hospitals and care sites, raising over $30 million in her tenure. She supervised funding campaigns for Norton Healthcare through the Children's Hospital Foundation and Norton Healthcare Foundation, Buell Dell Botanical Gardens, Corsair Charities, American Lung Association of Kentucky, and the James Brown Cancer Center, to just name a few. She is a co-founder of Lexington Forward, currently serves on the boards of Leadership Kentucky, Rotary Club of Lexington Endowment, Opera Lex, and Downtown Lexington Partnership. Welcome, Leslie. Chris and Leslie, we now formally induct you as members of our Rotary Club. Welcome. Back to you, Chris. I think I'm leaving you to share with
Thanks, Chris. He's going to put all those Hollywood writers out of jobs by stealing our stuff. I want to thank both for joining, and this club gets better and better. We have more people joining, especially younger people. And I'm actually one of the best friends of Leslie's brother, Sam Clemens. I don't know if you remember Sam. He's becoming regular. He's a great guy. Well, Chris, I was a little surprised when you grew up in Navy family. How do you end up spending most of your time in Tennessee, a landlocked state? I'd like to invite Fred Cowan, a very active member of the podium, to speak briefly about the Partnering for Peace program.
Thank you all very much. I'm about to get the slide up. I'm here to make an announcement about Partnering for Peace. Partnering for Peace we made. Get right on, right? Partnering for Peace. Partnering for Peace, you may recall, is a collaboration of the United States Peace Corps and Rotary International. And this club picked up the torch about a year ago, and many of you recall helped with our winter clothing drive for displaced refugees in Ukraine, in which we sent several hundred pounds of winter clothing to Ukraine by air, so they could get it in time. And we did a little bit to help alleviate this brutal situation. Unfortunately, we only had horses who did that. And we are also in the process of working through with the International Service Committee, this club, and International Service Committee of the district applying for a global grant to help provide care for displaced senior citizens in Ukraine. So we have somewhat of a track record. We hope that that grant will proceed, although it's still a desperate situation over there, as you know. But the Partnering for Peace is, as I said, a collaboration, and what we try to do is not only as Peace Corps volunteers like myself, but other folks involved who are interested in international service and helping to bring the Peace Corps, current Peace Corps volunteers, and existing Peace Corps volunteers who may be serving overseas right now. Some of you may Tim Nicolazzi report the evidence of former Peace Corps volunteers. And we've had people, other people who help with us, including, first Rick Hardin, which was in everything international. Rick Hardin, Steve Rungworth, Ace Sears, Susan Zepeda, and if I believe anybody out, forgive me, but they have also helped us in this mission. So, our purpose here today is to bring this to your attention, invite you to attend any of these Zoom sessions that you like, and if you want to get further involved with Partnering for Peace, or if you know Peace Corps volunteers or return Peace Corps volunteers who might have some interest, please let us know. Thank you.
Thanks, Fred. You guys are one of the most active Rotarians with the volunteer work. Actually, working with the city, who was helping out with the train task force. He did a great job with that. So we wrote this, we better use it. Now it's my pleasure to welcome Vernon Foster, Senior Executive Director and Assistant Dean of the University of Louisville College of Business, and Paul Harris, today's speaker. Before he starts, I just have one request of all of you. There's a rumor, I think it's true, that there's two people in the city who do not know Vernon. So if anyone comes there, please let us know.
Process to get that line, but this is an honor and a privilege. Even though Nat and I go back since the 90s at Wake Forest University, Doug, I was asking him those kind of questions even 30 years ago. AI, Terminator, robotics, what's the world going to look like? And he is such a ferocious reader. A book a day, I would say, is not uncommon. And they're not short novels, they're the big books. That's what it is. So when I was asked to introduce him, I thought it would take the entire session just to get into the genius mind of this man. So I'm just going to try to give you brief snippets from his bio as to who makes Dr. Nat Irvin. As you already heard from Doug, he is the Assistant Dean for Thought Leadership and Civic Engagement with Woodrow M. Strickler Professor of Management Practice at the University of Louisville and the College of Business. He teaches graduate courses on the future of management, leadership, and team dynamics. He has counseled and worked with Fortune 100 companies. He has been a futurist for the National Black MBA Association. He is a former member of the Board of Directors of the World Future Society. And he has been quoted by the New York Times, San Francisco Chronicle, the BBC, Christian Science Monitor, ABC News, Essence Magazine. I could just go on and on. That's how much he's been quoted. And not only that, he has been a columnist, and then he also created other voices, an Emmy Award-winning weekly commentary on an NBC affiliate. He created at Wake Forest the Future-Focused 2020, the vision of where we're going back then. Now he's going to tell you today where we're going, not 2020, but maybe 2040. There at Wake Forest, he served as the Executive Professor of Future Studies and Assistant Dean for MBA Student Development. Skip 3 pages, go down further. In 2013, Dr. Irvin was the advisor for TED Challenge, a mission to build the next generation of brains sponsored by TED, that's Technology, Entertainment, Design. He was the founder, the brain trust, the driver of trials at IDEM Festival with the Kentucky Science and Technology, something that, Nat, I would challenge you, we need to bring back. That was a game changer. He brought Watson. We probably got the first look at Watson in this city before anyone else. Now that's old technology. He has brought world chess players. He's brought the best and the brightest into the world. He's also a musical consultant and chief learning officer for Janelle Monáe, Wonderland Art Society, a multi-Grammy nominated artistic group based in Los Angeles and Atlanta, Georgia. He also is a composer of some of those Grammy Award-winning records and productions. And you'll have to just, did you bring the guitar in on the play for him? It's not to do that. But let me just conclude by telling you he's graduated from the University of South Carolina with a Bachelor of Arts degree in philosophy, a master's degree in media arts, an accomplished composer. He He has a doctorate degree in musical arts and music composition from the University of North Texas and is a graduate of the Institute for Educational Management, Harvard University Graduate School of Education, Nat Irvin extraordinaire.
Vernon, thank you very much. Can everybody hear me okay? Good. I promise to be loud and not to be long. I'm a son of a Baptist preacher, so that'll be going against my grain, but I'll live with that. Anyway, it is a great privilege, of course, to be at my own university, to be able to speak to Rotary. I'm glad you all decided not to be downtown and to come over here where the food is good, the students are bright, the faculty is sharp. We've done all kinds of great research. And of course, I'm here at a great university. Such a wonderful introduction. Vernon, I thought you were going to make that a little shorter, but you made it long. I'm here. I'm blind on my left side. For those on my side who don't know me, it happened when I was age 4. I swung in a golf ball in Michigan and instead hit a piece of glass. But it's all good now. You know, that had happened 68 years ago. I'm 72, so I managed to make it through all that. Here's what I want to do with you today. I want to walk you into my world of studying the future, of looking at the future. The thing I want to do is the pastor who's so, isn't it nice to be prayed for? Can y'all say amen to that? Somebody? So I want to tell you the end of the story now, so in case we run out of time, which is, so I ask myself when I think about what happens when everything changes, I have to ask that of myself. I've been studying the future for a long time, looking at the social, political, the economic, the technological trends. And so from time to time, I have to ask myself these questions because I'm teaching MBA students. I teach a course called Managing the Future, which is looking at the interplay of social, political, economic, and technological trends. So I have to always stay on the edge. I don't read a new book every day, but I did read, and I do read a lot. And I'm going to leave you with a book today. But before I get into that, I'm going to ask you to think about this. What happens when everything changes means to you? This is not theoretical. I'm asking you to think about that. Now, let's say, for example, let me play this, see if this works. Delete, let's see if this works, right? Can you see me here, right?
One of the great liabilities of life is that all too many people find themselves living amid a great period of social change. And yet they fail to develop the new attitudes, the new mental responses that the new situation demands. They end up sleeping through revolution. Now, there can be no gainsaying of the fact that the great revolution has taken place in the world today. In the sense that it is a triple revolution. That is a technological revolution with the impact of automation and cybernation. Then that is a revolution in weaponry with the emergence of atomic and nuclear weapons of warfare. Then that is a human rights revolution with the freedom explosion that has taken place all over the world.
Now when you hear that now, it was 1964, you can see how prophetic Dr. King's words were and that he was thinking about us, thinking about our time. And so I'm asking you now to be in that same mindset, to be thinking about what is the time that we're in. And here's a shortcut to what I will advance today. A time when artificial intelligence becomes the defining development of humanity. When AI becomes the defining development of humanity. Now let me just ask you, to think with me for just a moment. I'm going to read a passage, and I want you to just agree or disagree with this question, because this is the question that I ask of my students, and I'm asking this of you today. What does the coming wave of humanity, coming wave of technology mean for humanity? But just listen to this. In the annals of human history, there are moments that stand out as turning points when the fate of humanity hangs in the balance. The discovery of fire, the invention of the wheel, the harnessing of electricity, all of these were moments that transformed human civilization, altering the course of history forever. And now, we stand at the brink of another such moment as we face the rise of a coming wave of technology that includes both advanced AI and biotechnology. Never before have we witnessed technologies with such transformational potential, promising to reshape our world in ways that are both awe-inspiring and daunting. On the one hand, the potential benefits of these technologies are vast and profound. With AI, we could unlock the secrets of the universe, cure diseases that have long eluded us, create new forms of art and culture that stretch the bounds of imagination. Everybody agree so far? Everybody agree so far? With biotechnology and culture that stretches the bounds of imagination. With biotechnology, we can engineer life to tackle diseases, transform agriculture, creating a world that is healthier and more sustainable. Everybody agree with that? Just say yes. Yes. Good. But on the other hand, the potential dangers of the technologies are equally vast. With AI, we can create systems that are beyond our control and find ourselves at the mercy of algorithms that we don't understand. Everybody agree with that? Yes. Okay, say amen if you do. Amen. Good, y'all are doing great. With technology, biotechnology, we can manipulate the very building blocks of life, potentially creating unintended consequences for both individuals and entire ecosystems. As we stand at this turning point, we're faced with a choice. You can hear Dr. King's voice. A choice between a future of unparalleled possibility and a future of unimaginable peril. The fate of humanity hangs in the balance, and the decisions we make in the coming years and decades will determine whether we rise to the challenge of these technologies or fall back victims to their dangers. But in this moment of uncertainty, one thing is certain. The age of advanced technology is upon us, and we must be ready to face its challenges head on. Everybody agree with that? Yes. I'm so happy that you agree. Because that was written by AI. I didn't trick you. I mean, it was written. It's the opening paragraph. It's the opening prologue from a wonderful book that I recommend. Just came out, September 5th. This is by Mustafa Suleiman, who was one of the founders of a company called DeepMind. I've been following not Mustafa, but his colleague, Dennis Asavices, since maybe 2010. And so now, when I ask you the question about you and AI, I can ask you this question. How many of you have already been using AI? Let me do it this way. How many of you have been using AI when your employers don't know that you're using it? And I would say to you, a lot. Okay? A lot. This has already invaded us. Now, earlier this year, I was asked to write a piece called, for our University magazine. My colleague Henry just brought me a copy of it. It's the University Business magazine. So the way I framed the question was, is ChatGPT smarter than our 3-year-old granddaughter? And so at this point, now writing this in February, I've already been using ChatGPT earlier. I've actually been using it maybe some version of it maybe 2 or 3 years earlier, which I'll talk about in a minute. But in any case, so here it is. I'm experimenting with this very powerful technology. The question I want to do is, I want to see if it can help me to write my syllabus, which of course it's very good at. But the thing is, I want to do some basic things like ask it, who is Nat Irvin? Well, this is in February. And it tells me, unfortunately, that Nat Irvin died in 2016. So we know already that it's not as smart as my 3-year-old granddaughter. She's a solid right there. Right? It says that I was a great basketball player. And I was not a great basketball player. It says a few other things that basically that are untrue, which is the whole thing about hallucinations. Now, of course, we know, though, however, that this technology will eventually get to be very good. And in fact, since that time, February, now I wrote this in February, you already know about several things that ChatGPT has done. It's already invaded all aspects of us. We used to think in terms of the technology, you would say things like the singularity. How many of you are familiar with the term of the singularity? That's good. See, there you are. And that's the notion of being able to say that technology moves at a certain rate of speed that it begins to escape our grasp. It's what people generally refer to as artificial general intelligence, when it begins to approach us or surpasses us. What I will tell you is that's a useless description. Don't worry about artificial general intelligence. What we need to pay attention to now is something called artificial capable intelligence. That's where we are. So it's sort of the same thing in terms of thinking about the demographic singularity. For example, when America becomes majority minority in 2041. Well, it's the useless number. What you want to pay attention to is who are in the cribs right now. Who are the 5-year-olds, the 6-year-olds? In other words, the future presents itself not in absolutes, it gradually comes upon us. So you can see the demographic singularity, it is here, but in terms of the technological, the way to think about what this new generative AI is doing, it has pervaded every aspect of our work, of our being, already. I remember a story recently of a woman whose son had contracted some kind of unusual disease after the pandemic started, COVID. So she goes to about 17 different specialists trying to find out what is wrong with her son. 17. Finally, she decides to just put in all of the descriptions of what's going on with this child into ChatGPT. This is the one that we have now. ChatGPT suggests a remedy or a description of the disease. She takes it to the doctors and they say that is exactly it. It missed 17 human beings, specialists. So now we can begin to think about that. I don't know about you, but you can begin to think in your own lives about how you might have this new technology, this new partner, which will become sort of like a personal AI for you. Now maybe you're not in that age group where this is going to be your thing. I'm not going to exclude you because you're over the age of 70. I'm going to say, get after it. Everybody. Now who's more likely to use it? It will be Alpha, the Alpha generation, the AI generation. These are the young people. I'll show you a picture of them in a few minutes. But they are the ones, and remember, the thing that's so fascinating about ChatGPT and the generative AI is that it basically is mimicking us. So when Georgie, my little 3.5-year-old granddaughter, when she, for example, was visiting with us from they live in Los Angeles, she was visiting with us, we were going to take her for a walk on the park on River Road. And so we get the stroller out of the car and we say, Georgie, you want us to take the stroller? Because when we walk around the track, we're not going to pick you up. Georgie says, no, I don't want to be picked up. And you remember, we're telling you now that we're not going to pick you up. What does Georgie do? About halfway across the track, she decides she wants us to come pick her up. But Saba and Mom Shawn have already told her we're not going to pick you up. So what does she decide to do? She decides that she's going to use her little mind and cut the shortest distance between us and the car. She's already using geometry. She's already calculating, right? Now, a few months later, when we're in Los Angeles and Shawn was going to take her out for a walk, she says to Georgie, Georgie, do you want us to use a stroller or not? Georgie says, we'll take it just in case. Now just think about that. She's already using predictive analytics. She's already deciding. She's learned. And that's what ChatGPT does. And that's what the personal AI will be for each one of us. Now the other thing that's interesting about comparing these technologies to a 3.5-year-old is during that same visit in Los Angeles with the granddaughter, where she one night she didn't want to go to sleep. And so I decided to pick my iPhone up and I'm going to record our conversation. And Georgie notices the red light is on. So she says, Saba, what is that red light? And I say it's for recording. And she wants me to explain, what does recording mean? So since I'm being recorded, I have to explain it quickly. I have to do the best that I can. After I explain it, what does Georgie do? What Georgie does is, she looks at her grandmother and says, is that right, Mom Shawn? Now just think about what I'm seeing here. And this is she has already decided that we are her chat GPT. She verified. She didn't just believe what Saba said. She asked Mom Shana, which is a reflection of our society, a reflection of hierarchies, check, verify. And so as we evolve with it, being more comfortable with this new technology, it will build in the capacity to check, to verify. And that's a part of us. Now, the other thing that I will say to you, how I use this technology is, as you know, I teach this course called Managing the Future. I had to figure out early on, how would I use it? I'm teaching a course in the future, and I'm not going to use generative AI. I had to scramble. And here's what I did. I have been for several years teaching as part of Managing the Future. I teach the story of the history of epidemiology, which is the story of cholera in 1854. I can see some of my students who know the book, The Ghost Map, which is when we first start to use data to be able to measure things that you can't see, to be able to predict how diseases would happen. When you think about miasma, you think about the way we have come to understand disease now much better. In any case, so here I am teaching the history of cholera and the beginnings of epidemics. And what I decided to do was to have my MBA students to imagine that they were in the year 1854, use AI to create a virtual healthcare center for the year 1854. They looked at me like, are you kidding? I didn't know enough about it. I didn't know enough. And what else? Not only did I want them to use generative AI, I wanted them to use DALL-E, the one that creates pictures. I wanted them to use Midjourney. I wanted them to use all of those tools. But you know, within 1 week, they had decided to accept the challenge. And I brought in some help, basically just to relieve all of our nervousness. But within 6 weeks, 5 weeks, they had created this virtual healthcare center using AI, my MBA students. Now, I will say to you that this is early on. This is early, and already we can see within the industries, within the worldwide. Imagine what it is like now for us to move away from having access to information, which has been the last 30 so years or so with this new technology, to now being able to act on it. That's the fundamental challenge that Mustafa is raising for us, and which I want to leave with us today. And that is, we are moving as a species, as a country, as a community, away from the notion of just having access to information, but because of the new tools that we have, we get to act on it. Which means that the notion of power is changing, being distributed worldwide. 5 billion people having access to this technology. 5 billion people potentially having the same access to GPT, GPT-4, GPT-5 as anybody else would have. Now, the challenges that we're going to be faced with as a country are enormous. The challenges we're going to be faced with in education, in medicine, are enormous. And so it's going to be left up to us to get out of our comfort zones, to embrace this new technology, and to touch some of the toughest questions. I want to end with what the pastor had no idea that I was going to talk about here. I'm calling you a pastor. I don't know if you're a pastor or not. You're grateful. So here's what I had decided to do when I started it last year. What I felt like from reading my students' essays, like Eric's, who's here, reading some of these profound essays about the human condition, which I would challenge my students to do. I created a new course called a new course called Transaction and Transcendence. And it invites students to explore management through the lens of spirituality. So I'm basically teaching a course that includes the dimensions that we often ignore in MBA education, which is how do you lead with a tradition of Hindu, or with Islam, or if you're a Catholic, if you're a Baptist, if you're a person of faith. Where does that fit in our management and leadership education? So I started teaching this course with a colleague who worked on Wall Street for 27 years. And what we wanted to do was to talk to people where faith is very important, whatever that faith might be. It's not about religion. And the reason we wanted to do that was because we thought that the questions that are up ahead, we won't be able to answer them from just a transactional standpoint. we're going to have to go deeper. If we want to stay in touch with our total humanity, we're going to have to reach for that humanity. And I want to close with just encouraging you to be encouraged by the future, not to be afraid of it, to embrace it, and also I want you just to look at this little group right here. I'm not going to do that part here. I want to leave you with this vision right here. See these kids right here? Not that. Not that. Oh, wait a minute. I just almost got something. This is something. I love reading the works of Nobel laureates. Here is just like this is called the impossible theory. This is why having groups like Rotary where you come together. Just think about how powerful this is. This is like one of the great gifts I've given you, because it makes such perfect sense. This is also why you make sure that you don't have a group that looks like you. Okay? Just don't have one that looks like you. This is what you want right here. Wait, Nat, you went the wrong way, son. You went the wrong way. Here we go. Where we go. Oh, gosh, I went the wrong way. Hold on, son. Where you going? That's kind of hard to see from the back of here. All right. Yeah, I'm going. Here we go. Here we go. Look at this. All this stuff I was going to talk about, but not. Now I want you to see this. Yes. And these are the students that we teach in high school. Even though I'm an MBA professor for the last 17, well, let's say maybe 14 years, we also teach the dual credit program, introducing students to the whole world of business with Central High School. So now, if you want to know what the alpha generation looks like, what these bright eyes are looking like, I would just tell you, they're in our public schools. They're in the private schools too as well. But you should just meet some of the young people that I get a chance to meet with all the time. That's why I can be always encouraged. These kids have been taking their management, their introduction into management. These are this lesson here in our 4th day. They have not missed one class. They're on campus, they get college credit for it. That's part of what the University of Louisville does. So when you want to feel optimistic about the future, go visit our high schools, and I invite you to come visit Central High School. Thank you so very much.
As usual, he's been on. Any questions? Go back to the back and talk about futures. Actually, it seems to me you've been a futurist before the word even existed. So, the question I have is, think back, different times in our own lives, when we saw things changing, technology changing, and with Woodrow M became, it's like something today. Just think about, from your point of view, that how open was society over you, how excited were they over different views and teaching this about the possible upside of the future of technology, and also fear of the downside. So how are we doing in terms of, like, as a society at the macro level? Are we sort of prepared to do it in that way? And how are they prepared?
Well, Kevin, that's a great question. And we're about the same as human beings. When you look at the way, which is, first of all, I love that question, because in order to properly answer it shortly, is that one of the things I learned to do is look back, further back. Now, history is not 1970. History is not 1900. History is 1,000 years ago. If you look at, and one of the great ways to look at our human history is to study the history of disease. There's a great book called Pathogenesis. It just came out. It was only limited in India up until recently. But it looks at the course of human history when we've had to deal with diseases, epidemics. And you can see that we do the same thing. For example, you would never think that when we would have the pandemic and AI was predicting the behavior, predicted what we would do during the pandemic. None of the AI models predicted that we would go buy 200 rolls of toilet tissue. Okay? No. The former head of NIH, Francis Collins, NIH, said that the one thing that they did not predict, which they had been predicting for the pandemic for some time, is that you could never expect that people wouldn't actually take the vaccine. They didn't build that into the model. We just expected that. But if you go back and take a look and see how we would deal with the flu in 1918, how we deal with polio, what we do with cholera, you'll see that the basic thing is, in the midst, which is why I choose to use epidemics as a basic term that uncover human beings, we do the same things in uncertainty. We, in the midst of uncertainty, of unknowns, we humans act the same way every time. And we just have to work our way through it. Now, in terms of being optimistic, those are choices that people make. It's just choices that people make. Dr. King was worried that this new technology that was evolving, he was worried that it could be used for both good and bad. And what Mustafa is arguing here, which is why I recommend the book, is saying that we need to think about containment, that the power that is being unleashed now, we hear this from a lot of really great thinkers, we could be in some difficulty, and we may not be able to contain some of the, what happens when human beings get a hold of something very powerful, individually. Too long of an answer, I'll make it short.
Dr. Irvin, my name is Kent Wayland. I had the pleasure of seeing you and your children speak at the U of L Family Business Center earlier this year. And as a parent of 4 young kids under the age of 10, and I know many of the people here have grandchildren and children at that age, what wisdom, I was impressed by your children, frankly, and what wisdom could you impart on the room for raising kids of a younger generation to prepare for the world you're describing, where technology and advancements may get out of humanity's direct control?
Thank you for that question. Thank you for your reflections. I say do everything you can to dissuade your children and grandchildren from using too much technology. Do everything you can to persuade them from spending too much time on those devices. There's a wonderful book called Stolen Focus, which looks at the decline of attention spans within human beings over the last 100 to 200 years. I think that may be a little bit long, but it's a great book. I think sometimes, the notion is that technology can be good and for evil, and you can use it, depends on how you use it. I'm not alone in taking the position to say that social media is destructive. Okay? Destructive. I'm not trying to be on either side. I'm just saying basically I think it's destructive. And so I'm not advocating using it. I'm just saying do everything you can to limit, to persuade, to get your younger people to think twice about using this technology. Okay? It's not healthy. It's not healthy. We're just only starting to feel the implications. Just because something's invented doesn't mean that it's good. That's a personal opinion, right? It can be debated.
Thank you, Dr. Irvin. Kevin Fields, Club Director and Chair of the EI Committee, and a good friend of yours. Good to see you again. I'm always inspired and motivated by your work. And you mentioned, the question of rising or falling as a result of artificial intelligence. And I'm just a firm believer as a scientist myself that AI is going to be a disruptive force on every discipline known to man. And I would venture to say every subject taught at this great university will be impacted through AI. So I want to limit my question to how you see it affecting education, not just post-secondary, but even the K-12, because I believe that AI, as you said, when kids can not only access but activate the use of it, the kids will be much more progressive than what is being taught in a typical K-12 classroom, and it's not going to be room to hold them. How do you see it affecting a K-12 education going forward?
It's one of the areas where I'm most hopeful. Most of them. Groups like, the Khan Academy already, but they have something called Khan Amigo. And, so Kevin, the way I'm most optimistic about what will happen in education. I'm most pessimistic about how long it's going to take. Because institutions have this thing of just trying to observe themselves and to keep their arms around things. You know, for example, the first thing that happened after ChatGPT came, the universities just went crazy. Everybody said, ban it. Everybody says, just worried about plagiarism. I didn't see it that way at all. I just welcomed it into my class and I just decided I would teach differently. And so I can expect that we will have, so the long and short answer is, imagine every child having the ability to have their own personal AI, which is exactly what is going to happen. You will have your own personal AI. You will have your own personal AI. There's a company called PI, Personal Inflection, founded by this gentleman, Reed Hoffman, and some others. And it's not like ChatGPT. It's like a large language model catered toward you, your interest. So we're in this possible golden age, and we can make tremendous progress in some other areas. So that's the short race. Randall, you got the last one.
Hello, I'm Randall Davis. I am a Rotary Fellowship, and I had the honor of being a former student of Dr. Irving. And since I've been in his class, I have not slept because I've constantly read, even after leaving the class, and now I have developed an issue of audiobooks all night long in my ear while I sleep. So, but great professor, and I had a question, and I'm glad you're here because it was something I was looking at while I was at home, so since you're here, I'm going to ask. I was using ChatGPT, and one of the things that I was using it for was to develop a business prediction within the next 5 to 10 years. It was based on a cleaning business. One of the things that I discovered with ChatGPT is that it currently has a 2-year delay on data for certain things. Do you think that with us using it so much and where AI is using our brains to develop, that it eventually will be able to give information in real time?
Well, you can do that with certain models. For example, I have OpenAI and I have the ChatGPT 4, which was has been connected to Bing directly to the internet. And you know that we're in this stage, right? But here's the thing I'm saying, Graham. There are several versions. ChatGPT is just one, right? They're sprouting, just sprouting. There are large language models are being used. That's the whole basis of how the AlphaFold developed. The idea of being able to predict how proteins would unfold. That same mathematics of predictability is being applied to words, being applied to chemicals, being applied to everything. So, but the long, short answer is, yeah, it'll happen, but it evolves, right? It evolves. It's us. It's going back and forth in that. But the market says the more efficient, the better ones will be the ones that win. The market says that. So you just have to, and I tell you one professor to pay attention to, much better than me, Dr. Ethan Mollick, M-O-L-L-I-C-K at the Oracle School. He and his wife have done these fabulous videos, and he is helping students to use ChatGPT, generative PT, to help develop business models. And so is everybody else.
Let me ask something real quick, but as far as you're talking about the algorithms, do you think, because when you're building software and stuff, sometimes you have to manipulate, do you think that as far as people preventing AI to be, I guess, take over, we have to be able as humans to be able to manipulate the algorithm?
I'm not so sure about that. Not so sure about that. Thank you.
One more assignment, Matt, to help us think about the winner. Okay. For our door prize, we have 2 tickets to attend the Galapagos Meet the Artist reception on September 28th at Churchill Downs in the Homestretch Club during Twilight Thursday racing. Tickets will be emailed to the winner.
Okay, here we go.
Lucky winner.
Here we go. Pick 2. Pick 1. Here we go. All right. Ticket 2422226.
Everybody gets some light on it over this next page. Our scheduled speaker next week is Major General Don Hill, Commanding General Security Force Assistance Command. So thanks for coming this week. We'll see you all next week.